We got two families. How cool is that? Mashallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So I wanted to talk about some trends that I saw. And I think it has a more sinister tone because I'm seeing it pop up more and more. And this is where people are saying to religious women to have sex with their husbands more. On the surface, if you're a keyboard jihadi incel, maybe you're jumping at the gun and already typing with your fat fingers some slur against me. But pay attention for a second. Religious women being shamed as dry, boring prudes makes the religious woman think she has to turn into a very sexual being, a sexual panther. And once a woman goes down that route, she becomes very sensual and alluring, and she's not going to like her hijab, which cuts off her beauty. And she's going to want the male gaze. And then that's where more perversions come in. Because in order for her to open up and be more sexual, some women turn to intoxicants, pornography, toys, and sexual experience. And speaking as someone who was raised with the American conditioning of hypersexualization, it's very hard to channel that down. It takes work ethic consistently, okay? And then once you get the pattern going, it becomes easier. And I try to help women to see that they can do it. There's redemption, there's atonement, there's repentance, there's forgiveness, and that the struggle is worth it. So when you see cult members like the transformed wife whose husband cheated on her, and she's saying things like, women have sex with your husbands, be spontaneous, never say no, and she's framing it in a very soft tone, it can make young men horny and think that, yeah, I can just do it whenever I want, to shove it in, and she can never say no, right? This is not a very healthy way to look at it. And when women are spiritual, they're not, and they're chaste, they have disciplined themselves. And they have not let their lust demons, in a sense, roll over them and control them. So they start to get panicky. And they start to think, well, I don't want to be alienated from myself. I don't want to have to endure boring sex and pretend that it's like someone else, or I'm not even wet, I'm dry. I have to just pretend to moan, pretend to like it, and that fakeness when you're really not in the mood and you hate it, you're just cursing them in your head, and you just want it to be over, and you almost feel disgusted with yourself. You are not going to feel closer to that individual, you're going to feel farther. So what a lot of women tend to do is they start to seek ways to loosen up and be less shy. And that's where chocolates or gummies of cannabis, different prescription drugs she can get from her doctor, a little shot of vodka, and then brushing her teeth and using mouthwash after. Some things she can do to help her loosen up so she can endure having intimacy on demand when her husband doesn't want. And with that, it erodes her will to want to be good. Because if a woman sits down and thinks, well, everyone online is making fun of religious women for not being sex crazed, so that means I have to be more sexual. So how am I going to do that? They think, well, going to wear more sexy clothing. I'm going to wear more makeup. I'm going to speak in a sexier tone. I'm going to get the male gaze more for validation. I'm going to create an alter ego persona online where I can practice being more alluring Or they can even create a computer AI image of a girl that doesn't exist and then live through her so they can practice their sexuality that they're trying to get better at online, all behind their husband's back. And so when you hear people like Joe Rogan, he had a podcast with Ari Shaffir and the other degenerates. And Joe Rogan, who's a bisexual male and a porn addict and pushes DMT and alcoholism on young men, he said one of the best things is to get a blowjob from a religious Christian woman, right? And if you look, he said this recently, and if you look at how Pearly Things always brings up, you know, oh, this many marriages are sexless. And you think in your head, what man is reporting that if he's working? Who's filling these polls out? Is that really representative? Who reports every single time? And what counts as a session? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 20? Is it, you know, what's going on here? Who is giving up their personal information? But Pearl, who pretends to be modern, but she's not, because actually it's very masculine to talk about sex. Okay, I'm more on the masculine side, so I know who I am. But super feminine women don't talk about sex, only with other women, right? So when Pearl is on a public platform berating women about why they don't have more sex, this is also an attack on the religious female mind, right? Because you're making them think more about sex and to channel that energy. And it's fascinating because you don't really realize what you're doing there. Because in Islam, women are told to cover their beauty. Okay? When a woman is allowed to show her hair, show her chest, her butt, her heels, she gets sexual gratification on a lower degree from men, and she doesn't need to actually engage in the sex. She gets more validation, okay? She's not as bored because she gets to have a little playful fun in her mind with male energy without actually having intercourse. Whereas, and she gets to talk feminine, free mix, you know, get around the energy of testosterone, smell their sweat. She gets to operate in a totally different arena. Whereas the Muslim woman, she's deprived of that to protect herself. And by protecting herself, she thinks about sex less, and she's less sexual in terms of how she carries herself. Right? So you can't complain, essentially, about Muslim women wearing a lot of makeup, putting their Islamic clothing tighter, listening to music, wanting to wear high heels, wanting to go to free mixing gatherings, because if you're pushing them to be more sexual, naturally, it's like subconsciously, directly and indirectly, they will seek out how to actually become more sexual. And once you're really sexual, it is a trial to contain that energy. It's like trying to keep the lid on a pot that's boiling. Some steam is gonna boil out, right? Because when a woman is hot-blooded, she seeks to let that pressure out. And you can think in your head, well, that's great, you know, she's going to tire me out every night and every other day. But while you're at work, she's home and she's thinking in her head. And I'm sure you could stuff her in a closet, no college, no job, just keep her kind of collared at home. But there's always going to be the handsome man around. And while the cat's away, the mice will play. People cheat when they have opportunity. Alright? And if you keep bashing her and bashing her to be more sexual, whereas she's trying to not have a soft tone with men so that there's not a disease that arises in their heart, which causes the men to treat her different based on her tone. She has a softer tone, more feminine, the men respond better in terms of like softness and kindness. If a woman is more stern, deeper voice, more direct. Men are kind of, like, oh, you're coming at me with masculine energy, they're going to react in a different way. So we're told not to soften our tones towards men. We're told not to stomp our feet and get the male attention to look at our ankles and then scan us up and down. We're told to not wear excessive perfume. Like, we're all the ways that a woman is sexual. Perfume, very ordained, like ornate clothes, the way she catwalks. All of that attracts the male gaze and allows the woman to get high self-esteem and the thrill of male attention. The Muslim woman is cut off from that the more she submits to the religion. So if she's going to do wudu 5 times a day, her face is going to get wet. If she's washing off expensive eyeliner, 5 times a day, and then reapplying it, it's kind of a little bit crazy, isn't it? So if you keep nagging her to be hypersexual, that can backfire on you, is my point. And there's something interesting about how the nuns were shamed in Catholicism, because they were first, oh, these are cold women, you never would want to marry a former nun, they're just this or that. And then porn took that cold woman and turned her into a fetish, into the naughty nun. And then you saw how people liked watching that because it was an inversion. It was an inversion of the cold religious woman turns hot, horny, bad, right? And so it was a titillating, alluring fetish that really went roaring in the 90s, okay? And now it's very common to see porn stars wear crosses, to not be modest at all, and that actually eroded the faith. So when a woman says, I'm Christian, you don't automatically think of a pious, chaste woman. You're just like, okay, we'll see about that. So there's huge doubts raised on Christian women because of how many porn stars and girls in the 90s started giving it up to be more sexual, right? So they wouldn't be shamed and embarrassed according to the new culture of being more prudish, okay? To be more sexual, more Ishtar, more slutty, sensual, free in their femaleness, right? Now, you see the same strategy happening to the Muslim women, because traditionally no one thought of a Muslim woman as something sexual. It's except in Orientalist art, right? Where the harems and whatever. You would see the niqab, but now you know that the porn stars are wearing niqabs and sheikh outfits and stuff like that. And when you go online and you see the conservative movement bashing religious women, put out more, like just really hammering it, like, you are not good enough, you're starving your man. And where men are gossiping with other men about their wives. Okay, so this opens up the door for men to complain and embarrass themselves about sexless wives. And then the wives who don't get the average outlet for self-esteem and validation, feeling more miserable. So I hope you see what I'm trying to say here. You have the Muslim woman who can't go to the gym and free mix with men to work out. It's harder and more boring to work out at home. I mean, I work out at home with my own little gym, but I definitely worked out better when I could go to a regular gym. It was much better with the equipment and the energy. And there is no all-female gym around me. And even then, a man can simply identify as a female and get in anyways. So you don't really prevent anything anymore. So she can't go that route and get the body as easily with all the equipment. She's told to not go to college, which can make her feel a little bit smart. I've also heard the men say, we don't want scholar shehas as wives. So now she's in the theological realm held down. And then she's bombarded with, only wear black. So that's kind of a depressing color. Don't show your face. So she doesn't show her beauty. And then if she does show her face, don't wear makeup. And then she wants to wear makeup so that she can overcompensate for her lack of hair showing. And then if she shows her hair, she gets a little validation because she is able to braid it, put beads in it, color it, to a different color than her natural one. And so then she wants to put fake nails, then she wants Botox for her lips, then she wants, like a nose job. It just keeps going and going and going. You see? So when you tell a woman become more sexual, once you do that, the tiger don't want to stay in the cage. The tiger can only be the tiger if it's allowed to be in the jungle. Yeah. If you don't let your parrot out the cage, it'll pluck its feathers, won't be beautiful anymore. There's a lot of constraints on the Muslim woman that puts her at a mental disadvantage in order to navigate how she's supposed to keep her self-esteem up and sexuality when the Islamic clothing cuts that off itself. Okay? And I don't know very many women who want to wear fancy, elegant clothing inside while they're cooking and cleaning. And if they got, 3-4 kids running around, it's very annoying to have graceful, pretty clothes on while one kid can spill juice, one's drooling on you, you're changing a poopy diaper. It's not really comfortable, and you don't wear a princess dress to clean a chicken coop. Let's put it that way. And she don't have a lot of time as a stay-at-home mom to sit in front of the vanity mirror and paint her face for her husband, and then do prayers and then put it back on. Like, there's a lot of logistics if you sit down and look at it. So her self-esteem, or just her desire, her hormones, her expression of her sexuality changes. Okay? So if you're pushing her to be more and more sexual, like she sees all this crap on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, Twitch, whatever, saying, religious woman, be more sexual with your husband. You may be thinking, oh, well, yeah, just with your husband. But once you just open that door, and now she's thinking, okay, well, I don't want to do that. So how do I become it? Well, I gotta act like these women who are able to channel that fierce Jezebel, Ishtar energy. And once you get that energy, that's a more dominant energy, because when a woman is fully sexual, a man can't control that. She uses the man to recharge herself. This is very deep, and some people don't really get what I'm saying. So if you don't understand, that's understandable. But I'm trying to condense down a complex topic as much as possible. So this agenda online of push sex, religious women, sex. This is making people mock religious women, see them as inferior because they don't put out as much. It shames the men and makes other men think, yeah, you got yourself a traditional wife, but she's a prude. I got me this girl over here that just lets me blambast it wherever I want. And meanwhile, that chick probably is on Adderall, probably has a couple Vicodins, Chardonnay, had 2 abortions, bunch of plastic surgery. You're not seeing the dark spiritual side of that woman, whereas the more simple housewife who's truly spiritual, she may not be as adorned because she's got things to do. She may be a Cinderella, but she's trying, and she's trying to make it by every day. It's quite different when you have children to tend to. You have very little sleep. It's a different battle than the woman who has no kids and is living her, fun girl summer. Total different energy here. Okay? You don't want the woman to starve the husband of intimacy, But you should be careful with how much you bully the woman to be a sexual being, because when woman is fully sexualized, it's hard to contain that. And it's an energy that is naughty. It wants to do deviant things. Okay? The porn star is a woman who can shut off her desire for one man, and she can be the fantasy of the male at any time. But she has to use intoxicants, and she has to alienate herself from a spiritual sense and go into more dark feminine energy, more cultic energy. And once the men have recycled her and used her, she has deep mental issues, addiction, and then actually begins to hate men because she can see how much they are enslaved to the vagina. Okay? And when a woman worships the phallus, she loses her identity, loses herself, and then just becomes a very sexual being, and it's very hard to contain that kind of energy. Alright? And you can ruin your home by brainwashing your chaste woman into constantly thinking about sex, right? Oh, try this position, try this location. You can have your fun. I'm not saying just do missionary. But what I am saying is tread lightly with how much you're bullying your chaste religious wife, because she's alone a lot. And when she's alone, yeah, sure, you can take her phone, keep her away from social media, lock her inside. You know, the princess will always find a way to escape the tower, even if there's a dragon guarding it, right? There's always going to be this sneaky coyote, this sneaky fox, who knows when there's a hole in the fence. I'll put it that way. And if you embarrass her, you know, you don't know how to make her excited, make her romantic, make her bonded to you, and you just are harping on her like, let me squirt on you, let me do this, she's not going to enjoy that type of interaction. She's going to start to resent you, and then she's going to need, inside she's going to feel she has to level up in her sexuality. And if she levels up too far, then she's going to see you for what you are, wonder what it's like to be with a man who's bigger downstairs, or maybe a different race. I mean, it can snowball, it can spiral. That's why adultery is so common. I mean, there was this cliche of the rich, bored housewife cheating with the landscaping guy who's lower in status, but he's just different. And she, you know, cheats on her husband with Fabio. It's a cliche that exists as a stereotype because it's true. So be mindful. Be very mindful of listening to these people who enjoy bashing religious women for not putting out enough. It doesn't mean you're condoning women going away for too long. But here's the gist. They're not saying come together and talk about it. Find a way to have just you time. Understand there's going to be ups and downs in the relationship. And in the first 2 years, you're the lovebirds. 5 years rolls around. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You pretty much are on the same roller coaster. Right? It's around and around and around. And it's very monotonous and predictable. You know what's there. You're more comfortable in your patterns, and it's just a smooth energy, right? There's not the anxiety and chaos. There's more peace and calmness, and you can focus your energy on other things. So, if you're pushing a woman and nagging her while she still has beauty, in an age where women can do OnlyFans even behind their husbands' backs, you should be careful. There's apps, right? They go on these apps. Oh, so-and-so is near you. You're at work. You pushed her. You nagged her. You embarrassed her for being chaste. You thought you were helping her just to open up. You made her open up too much. Now it's backfired. Okay? If I have a horse and I wanted to get exercise, you know, I want it to stay within the fence. But if I'm chasing the horse around, whipping it, cursing at it, spooking it, and it jumps over the fence and runs away, well, who did that? You see what I'm saying? Instead of I could have just opened the barn door, let it go in and out as it pleased, but I ran behind it, cursing at it and frightening it. Being rough, not being gentle. If I hold my hand out to a bird that's skittish, it'll come feed from my hand. But if I grab it and yell at it and say, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? The bird's going to get scared and try to fly away. Goes out the window, whose fault is it? It's mine. Because of the way I handled the bird. You have to be gentle with certain people's personalities. And if you say, well, the angels are going to curse you if you don't give it to me, you're going to go to hell. Like, that type of like, what, I'm going to go to hell? Well, I got to do something. I don't naturally want it. Well, I heard a double scotch will help. I'll take this THC. I'll take this. I'll take that. He won't know. I'll just put it in and then I'll be ready. I'll put the kids to bed and then, in the night I'll do it and he probably won't even know and I'll try to hide it. And then slowly an addiction comes, right? And you're going to work, have no idea that your wife resorted to using drugs so she could satisfy your needs. Because you as well were listening to this rhetoric online that turned you against your chaste wife. You nagged her, you bullied her, because other men, maybe they're not even real too. They're just agenda driven to get you to resent your wife. To make you look at the porn star and say, why can't my wife put out as much as this porn star? Not knowing that there is different female energies here. The sexual energy is one of the toughest energies for us to have to wrestle with as humans. Okay, especially when it comes to a woman, because it expresses itself, in so many different ways. And when you're told as a woman, cover the beauty and don't let people see it, that takes off a huge outlet of validation. And validation helps women to feel sexy so they can do sex. You see what I'm trying to say to you? I'm really fascinated with the lack of understanding of the trial of the Muslim woman in terms of how she's restricted within the Sharia and how that would affect her hormones, her self-worth, her sexuality, her sensuality, and how that would then ripple effect into the bedroom. And the strategies to rectify that. That's why some women, when they start wearing hijab, they get a little bit bigger. Whereas when women who have to wear jeans, they know they have to stay skinny because they don't want to look fat in their jeans. You see what I'm saying? So there's a whole psychological paradigm. But I'm very weary, to tie it all up. Why is all this rhetoric coming out against religious women? Why is the pattern repeating itself? Why are men shitting on their wives? Whether it's through confessions or not, it doesn't matter, because they'll complain about the hypersexualized thotties and how they show their bodies on Instagram. They're going out to Dubai, doing all this stuff. And then the religious woman who's doing the job of 5 people, right? She's the nanny, she's the cook, she's the maid, she's the supporter for her husband's spiritual needs. She's a Muslimah, she's doing all this stuff. She's worn out. She's exhausted. She's working so hard. And she can't be the sex kitten because the sex kitten gets to recline in pure female energy without having to lift a finger. So the different expressions of womanhood come into factor as well. It's such a deep spiritual conversation here. Okay? And not everybody will get it, but I know some will. Because this is something that is being done to the Muslim woman now with all these red pill manospheres shaming the sluts and then turning around and shaming religious women for not putting out. Look at the paradigm here. Hey, these women are hypersexual. They're very voluptuous. Sex kittens, we call them, right? Oh, trash them, stone them verbally, curse them, but then to the religious woman, mock her for being a prude. And they never show you the middle. They never show you that. I really want you to think about what's going on here. If you're a man, you're getting bounced between these two extremes. Whore, virgin, whore, virgin, whore, virgin, whore, virgin. You're gonna go nuts. The poor woman is like, well, if I go the religious route, my body is no longer mine. I can't say no. A man can do marital rape, so if I tell him no, stop, I'm not in the mood, no, and he just grabs it and does it, he could tear me down there. I don't want to be a fleshlight. I don't want to be treated like that. I want someone who's more gentlemanlike, has more class, not a brutal, gagging, choking, slapping porn addict. Like, this is scary. So then they think, well, I gotta channel this dark feminine energy. The witchy, occultic, dark feminine energy is something that a man should fear. That's usually, there's such a dynamic nature of how do you get the woman to be the perfect balance. Because once she starts to become so sexual, yeah, have fun trying to hold on to the panther's tail. It's going to turn around and scratch your face off. But at the same time, you don't want the cold crocodile. I get it, who always swims away from you, and you just can't seem to reach him. So there's a balance here. But I argue, be careful, gentlemen and ladies, with listening too much to these people who keep talking about other people's sex lives. Right? Because why are they worried about that? Oh, but people are coming to me. Why? Are you a sex therapist? Who are you? And people shouldn't be going to too many other people about their sex lives. No one can help you except you two couples. You can get a little advice here, a little advice there, but at the end of the day, it's you two who gotta fix it. Okay? Recharging that spiritual, beautiful connection between you that attracted you in the first place. Maintaining it, feeding it, caring for it, guarding it, preserving it. That's the goal. But they're not talking about that. It's just, hey, religious woman, you're a prude. Put out more. This will push her towards pornography, addiction, self-hatred, and to a hypersexualized being, which will contradict with the religious edicts which tell her to cut that off. Okay? So, understand what you're doing to your poor wife here. You're telling her, don't show your hair, don't wear makeup, don't wear tight clothes, don't go around here, don't do this, don't, haram, and you're just beating her, she's like, oh my god. And then the woman who's free and everything's hanging out, and those men are like, hey, you look great, and they're just giving her compliments to use her, but she's still getting praised, where the religious woman is getting, you got hair showing, you got this, you got that. They're gonna be like, I just can't win, I just can't do it anymore. And then now you're like, well, you're a prude, give me more booty, give me whenever I want. Like, that's not spiritual, that's not love, that's not kindness, that's not mercy. Okay, and then the women who think, oh, I want to change, they see how the religious women are being talked to about sex, they're like, why would I sign up for that? You see what I'm saying? So women are being repelled from religion with this rhetoric of sexless marriage, and it's pushing the religious woman to want to commit sin, want to commit adultery, and it's helping the porn industry figure out their new genre. Okay? And this is dangerous for Muslim women because it fetishizes them and it will break up the home. Okay? So think about it. Just think about what I'm saying. I made a lot of points. I hope I was able to connect them all effectively for you, because more could be said. But to me, when I see cult members in the Christian community talking about this, Muslim men talking about this, you gotta be like, somebody is pushing this out there through bot campaigns, something's stock accounts, something's happening here, and it ain't right. Okay? It ain't right. So keep an eye on that. Find ways to praise the Muslim woman and do marriage counseling without promoting hedonism that will turn around like the scorpion and sting the hand that touched it. Really important. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan.